As a highly sensitive or neurodivergent person, we can experience many positive qualities, such a greater appreciation of beauty and art, a heightened awareness of subtleties, emotional depth, stronger empathy, all of which can enhance creative expression and performance, as shown by many actors, musicians, writers, and other artists, but there can also be vulnerabilities to stress and overwhelm. Therapist Julie Bjelland talks about sensory overload in this short excerpt from one of her free classes.
A little bit about me for anybody that's new to learning about who I am. I'm Julie Bjelland, and I'm a psychotherapist that specializes in high sensitivity. I founded Sensitive Empowerment. I'm an author of the Empowered Highly Sensitive Person and some other books too. I have an online sensitive empowerment community. I'm the host of the HSP podcast. I am at the highest level of sensitivity. So this is where a lot of my drive comes from, because I was extremely challenged by sensitivity. So it's been really part of my mission to share how do we live in this busy modern world as highly sensitive people with all of these challenges. So just a little bit of the trait of high sensitivity. We call it the highly sensitive person, or HSP for short, but scientifically it's actually called sensory processing sensitivity. It's an innate trait. You're born with it. It's not a disorder. It's found in 15 to 20% of the population, equal in gender, found in over 100 species and counting. And we have brain differences, one of them being that many of us experience increased fight-flight, which actually happens a lot with sensory overload as well. And we're challenged by sensory overload. Hey, Stu, I see you from the community too. I love it. Okay, so what is sensory overload? Just a quick definition for it is when our senses take in more information than our brain can keep up with processing. So this is our experience, especially if you're high up on that sensitivity scale like me, you likely experience sensory overload. And I know for myself, I didn't even know what sensory overload was, or when I was experiencing it, I didn't understand that that's what it was. And knowing about it has changed my life, because if I know about it, I can do something about it. Do you know how sensory overload impacts you? So I love to see you guys putting a lot of stuff in the comments too about this. So you might be surprised that it's often the culprit of symptoms of emotional reactions, anxiety, irritability, sleep issues, exhaustion, and I want to add burnout. A lot of HSPs experience burnout, and even loss of productivity, creativity, and focus. Yes, Ashley says shopping fills my brain. Oh my goodness, I have a story for you about that. I recently went to a grocery store on the weekend, which is something I don't normally do or ever do, because weekends are filled with people and a lot of sensory overload. And it was amazing. It was like the bright lights, the loud sound, the music was really loud. There were so many people in this store, and it was an instant feeling of sensory overload. And now I know what that is and what to do about it. So we're going to talk about this too. So some of the ways that HSPs describe sensory overload, which you guys would probably also see that you've written in the chat, too much of everything. Sights, sounds, smells, people, thoughts, pressure, feeling out of control. And you guys let me know if this sounds like you're resonating with this. Overwhelmed, can't handle one more thing. Draining, completely depleted, feeling irritated, short-tempered, overcome with anxiety, shut down, can't concentrate, headache, feeling trapped, needing to escape, feeling raw, vulnerable, unable to relax, heart racing, crying, sometimes leading to panic attacks. We got lots of yeses coming up in the comments. Yeah, this is tough. This is challenging. And this is real. So I really think it's important that we normalize and validate these experiences. Migraines, Claire says. Yep. Overactive brain, Lee says. Pamela, I can't listen to small talk. Yeah, I don't like small talk either. I want to dive down deep into the conversations instead. So the challenges for us as HSPs, and this is something that you've probably heard me talk about on the podcast a lot, if you're a podcast listener, the world is not set up for sensitivity. And we receive messages that something is wrong with sensitivity. We are really in this busy, on the go, hustle, 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 society pressures and expectations. Our nervous system has more data to process, which really means that we have an increased need for rest and restoration. We just can't push through or we're not going to be well physically or mentally. And no one taught us how to manage sensory overload. So no wonder we're challenged by it. We experience this, we're getting invalidated, people don't understand our experiences, the people around us, the majority of people are not having these experiences. And I want to mention too that, we know sensitivity is on a scale. So I want to point that out, that even if you're with another HSP, you might not have the exact same experiences. And I also want to make sure we're saying that there isn't something wrong with you. It's that the world's not set up for sensitivity. And that's an important distinction. And you're going to hear me talk about that a lot. We get those messages that something is wrong, but I want to make sure that we're changing those messages. And just to give you an information about what's coming up, we're going to talk about tips for preventing sensory overload, some solutions, a special gift, and I'm going to answer your questions at the end too, while we're here together live. So some tips to prevent sensory overload. Let's talk about that. Go out at off-peak hours. Now, this is something that has really helped me a lot. When I didn't understand sensory overload, and like I was saying, going into that busy grocery store on a weekend, or into a restaurant that's really crowded, or anything that's actually crowded. I love being able to go places during the weekday mornings. That's my thing, because there's less people out and it really cuts down my sensory overload. I want us to advocate for more quiet hours and spaces at stores, at home, at work. It's incredibly important. There's actually some stores that are offering quiet hours where they don't have the loud music. They have dimmer lighting. This is set up more for people with autism, but sensory overload for those highest at the scale of sensitivity can have a similar experience with sensory overload. And at home, you need a quiet place at home. I really believe if you're high on the scale of sensitivity, you have to have a place that's yours, that you can close the door and it's quiet. And you're going to need that a little bit every day to have that quiet. And at work, I love seeing HSPs advocate for what they need at work. Maybe they are changing the fluorescent lighting above their desk, or they're changing where their desk is located. An open office floor plan is not a good idea for those of us high on the scale of sensitivity. We need private, quiet spaces to really perform our best. So when you're advocating, that's what you're wanting to do, is to say, this is how I'm going to perform my best.
Thanks for listening. See the Creative Mind post for this podcast episode with links to resources and other material.